Hello and welcome to Creator Weekly for May 25th, 2025. I'm Peggy Kay, and this week was Google I/O, their big developer conference. So that's going to be a lot of what I'm talking about today, and no surprise, it was all about the AI. They talked about creating what they called a universal AI assistant and announced a bunch of new features. But that wasn't everything. This week, there's also a few updates for YouTube, for Bluesky, some other updates as well. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to start with a couple of smaller YouTube updates. In the YouTube Shorts editor, they've added a new sticker. So you can add a quiz to your short. So the other interactive sticker options are a poll, Q&A, and add yours. When you add the quiz, you can add up to possibly 2 different answers. So yes, no, choose between these 2 options. And as the creator, you can see how many people voted and how they voted, the percentages. Otherwise, the votes are anonymous. So this is a new way to kind of engage people on your shorts. It's kind of fun. The next update is also for YouTube Shorts. A few months ago, I talked about a new feature YouTube was testing in the Shorts editor to show guides. The idea is that if you're adding a sticker or text, you move it around. This helps make sure that you're not putting that in an area of the short that might be covered up by various stuff. And if you've used the YouTube Shorts feed to watch videos, you know that there's buttons on the side and there's a title and other information at the bottom. So a lot of it actually can be obscured. This is what it looks like in practice. You can see it's kind of like ghostly icons where things might appear. And I think the take-home message of this is when you're creating a short, make sure all the important stuff is in the middle. Or, know that it might be cut off otherwise. So this week was Google I/O, and the focus was on adding AI basically into everything. Google's talking about making a universal AI assistant. They said, there were more than 100 things announced. So obviously, I'm not going to talk about all those things. I'm going to touch on some of the more creative updates that they talked about this week. And if you want more, you should check out this week's newsletter. There is a link in the video description that has a more detailed roundup and links to the keynote and all the other information. And you should subscribe to the newsletter to get all the updates in your inbox every Saturday. I want to say hello to Craig and Jolyn, who are here in the chat. Anyone else, please say hello. Good to see you here. And I'd be interested in hearing about what you guys think about this week's announcements, because it's a lot. Also, I wanted to mention that there are multiple ways to get access to these new features being announced by Google. You can sign up for Google Workspace Labs and Google Search Labs. That gives you access to some of the more beta early testing updates, and you can try things out. You don't necessarily get access to them permanently, and you don't get access to everything. But if you want to sort of try the latest things, sign up for Google Workspace Labs and Search Labs. Those are both free. There are also now 2 different paid subscription tiers. The first is Google One AI Premium. That's now called the AI Pro tier. And you can see there's a whole list of what it has access to. University students in several countries can actually access this for free if you sign up with, you have to sign up with your personal account, I think, not your school account. And it's free through the end of the school year next year, so a year from now. And then there's a whole new tier called AI Ultra. That is usually $250 a month, which is obviously quite spendy, but it gives you access to the best of everything, some experimental features. It gives you more credits to generating AI things. It also includes YouTube Premium and 30 terabytes of storage. I think it's really aimed at people who want to do things like generate videos. And I'll note that some of the features that Google announced are only available through Google Workspace for business and for enterprise. It's really kind of confusing because Google now has all these different AI models and all these different features, and different features are available with different kinds of accounts, and it's different in different countries. Some of the features I'm talking about are available now, and some won't be available for months. So I know it's totally confusing. You'll have to look at the actual information. Again, check this week's newsletter for links to everything. So, Jolyn says, talking about Google I/O, a lot of the developer topics were over my head. Yeah, me too. I don't usually watch the developer topics. I do read some summaries about what they talked about, but that's really beyond my skill level and honestly beyond my interest in a lot of cases. I like to use them. I don't like to create them. So for creativity, the big updates were for Google's video and image generation models. So the latest video generation model is Veo 3. This is more realistic. It follows physics better. And the big update is now you can generate audio. So you can make actual full video clips. This is one of the examples they showed, the old man and the sea. Let me see if I can play that. I'll say the prompt for this video was, okay, it's a lot of words. A medium shot frames an old sailor, his knitted blue sailor hat casting a shadow over his eyes, a thick gray beard obscuring his chin. He holds his pipe in one hand, gesturing with it towards the churning gray sea beyond the ship's railing. Quote, "This ocean, it's a force, a wild, untamed might, and she commands your awe with every breaking light," unquote. So the important thing to note is that sentence in quotes is actually going to be generated audio. Let me call this up. And I hope the audio comes through correctly, but I will.
This ocean, it's a force, a wild, untamed might. And she commands your awe with every breaking light.
So that, it's pretty high quality, as you notice. It's very realistic looking. If you check things out, there's lots of people who are experimenting with it. I saw a very realistic looking pharmaceuticals ad. If you're in the US, you're familiar with the sort of style of pharmaceuticals ad where it basically goes from person to person and they say how wonderful this medication is. That works well with the AI prompts because all the clips right now are very short, and it works because you have a totally different scene and different characters in every clip. So I think that we're going to be seeing a lot more of this. Google also announced that the previous video model, Veo2, has updates. It has what they call referenced powered video. Upload images of characters, of scenes, of objects, and it will use that reference to generate the video. This gives you more control and consistency. You have camera controls. That's what this is supposed to be showing. You know, in the original, it's actually animated. This doesn't make sense, but you can actually tell it to rotate the camera, zoom in, zoom out, move right, move left. So it's like you're controlling an actual camera in the clips. It has outpainting. As if you have a vertical video and you can expand it to be landscape, it fills that in. And it has realistic looking object add and remove. So remove things, add things, and it has the correct shadows and everything to look realistic. I think that it's pretty incredible what we're looking at now. And it's just going to get more realistic in the future. So it's interesting. So the next question is, how do you get access to try these? Google also announced Flow. And I know that looks blurry, but that's, if you go to the Flow website, it's actually this animated and the blur is there intentionally. So Flow used to be Video FX in Google Labs. As I mentioned, with Google Labs, you do get to try things in advance. It's a filmmaking tool built with and for creatives. So they have worked with some filmmakers to make some short films with this. The basic features are Veo3, although some of the features I think use the Veo2 model. It's text to video, frames to video. So that's you upload an image and it basically starts with that. Video extension, that, extending clips, camera controls, a scene builder, and 1080p upscaling. It's available in 70 countries all around the world as long as you're not in Europe. Europeans don't have access, but it only is English right now. And the only way to get access to this is with a paid AI plan. So with AI Pro, you get all those features. With AI Ultra, there are a couple more editing features and higher monthly generation limits, and you can buy extra credits if you have AI Ultra. So if you want to make an actual movie, you probably have to pay for the more expensive account, the one that's $250 a month. There is a deal on now, I think, at half off for a few months. So yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of video being generated. I do have worries that when these things get cheaper, there's more of a flood of low quality, just churned out stuff on YouTube, on every platform. So the other big model update is Imagen 4. That's Google's text-to-image model. It has better generation of fine details like fancy fabrics, water droplets, animal fur. It can create images up to 2K resolution. That means they're actually high enough resolution to print. And the big update is that it's better at spelling and typography. So one of the characteristics of AI models you see are these like things that are supposed to be text and they're kind of just weird letters or things that aren't spelled right. This is more realistic. So you can see an example here generated, and I'm not going to lie, a lot of this Google is using for advertising and giving these tools to advertisers. So Imagen 4, the latest model, it's available in the Gemini app, Whisk, that's one of Google's tools to kind of play around. Google Workspace in Slides, Vids, and Docs, and for enterprise, Vertex AI. These models keep getting better and better. And so the question is, how do you detect synthetic content when you use Google's tools to generate images or video or audio? It has an invisible watermark, and Google's system is called SynthID. They are now testing a SynthID Detector. You can check images or videos for this watermark. Yes, I think it's important. If there's a watermark, there should be a way to detect it. But it's kind of not great what's happening with these sort of detector portals. So you put an image or video in and it's negative, and that just means it doesn't have the SynthID watermark. It doesn't mean it isn't AI generated. It could use another platform. Someone could have figured out how to remove the watermark. So it's only partial information, and you have also Adobe's content authenticity watermarks. That's a totally different system. Best I can tell, Adobe and Google are competing, so there is no standard watermark. And of course, there's a lot of generative AI platforms that aren't adding a watermark at all. And I'm just envisioning the next level, new things. People sell you services. The next thing is going to be some company where they say, oh, we've put together all these watermark detection platforms, so you don't have to try in a lot of spaces. Just use our platform and it will check everything. And of course, you have to pay them a fee. So I don't know how all of this scales or how this works in the long run. And the biggest issue is not necessarily that it's AI generated, but that people are using it in a way to falsely represent what's there, especially when you can generate video of realistic looking and realistic sounding people. That's a concern, that you could be creating false narratives. So the problem is not so much that it's AI, but it's how people are using these tools. And of course, people did this kind of thing before there were these generative AI tools as well. And it was a problem then. Misinformation, disinformation, and so forth. So there is a new experimental service that Google is trying. This experiment is called Sparkify, and right now it's not generally available. You have to sign up for the wait list. I think first it will probably only be available in the US. And what this lets you do is enter a question or a topic, and it generates a short animated video. In the examples, most of them are vertical videos, but it looks like you can do landscape as well. It's really cute. It's done in an educational style. It gives me some qualms, though, because if you're just putting in a topic and it's generating a video, the odds are pretty good some of the information is going to be wrong, because the AI tools just aren't that accurate with factual information. So it's a concern of people using these things to churn out content that is supposed to be factual. It's supposed to be educational, but it's wrong. And this feels like it could have unexpected problems. So Craig says, I'm glad Peggy is not AI generated. How do you know I'm not AI generated? I could just be the latest model. And I'm the one where they've added all the flaws in. I want to say hi to Chimchar as well. Thank you for joining. You mentioned that Google I/O was on May 20th to May 21st, and that is when it was held, and it is the last week of May. Thank you for joining. So I wanted to switch gears just a little bit to Google Workspace. These are tools for business, and there were a lot of really kind of cool announcements. One of the things they announced is this automatic translation in Google Meet where it's dubbed. So someone's speaking in Spanish and you can hear them speaking in English. It's pretty cool. You should watch the demo video. And there's lots of sort of smart features. I think we'll see those coming out over the course of the year. But I want to talk specifically about Google Vids. And one of the neat features they announced for Google Vids, which is part of the whole Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Slides, all integrated, you can turn your slide deck into a video. And that's nice and easy. Also in Google Vids, there's going to be an audio cleanup tool. It's supposed to remove pauses or things like and to clean up the speech. But it's interesting because if you use Notebook LM and you create an audio overview, that's the sort of podcast style overview of information. That audio overview has pauses. It has actually some of these kinds of words like that because it makes it sound like a human is talking. So what this tool sounds like it will do is make a human sound more like a bot. I'm not sure that's necessarily good or not. I guess if it's, I am thinking of this as sort of like clean corporate video. There will be a balance sound tool that'll let you adjust the sound levels. So if you have multiple video clips, music, it adjusts those levels so it's kind of balanced. And then Google Vids has AI voiceovers already, and they're adding AI avatars. And I'm going to say that the way Google described this kind of rubbed me the wrong way. They said, what if there simply isn't time or budget to film the right spokesperson for your video, but you want to ensure a polished and consistent way to deliver your message? They also say, skip the hassle of coordinating talent in video production. This is basically like, absolutely, if you're cheap or you don't want to take extra time, this gets rid of the people element. Again, like I said, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. And to a certain extent, I worry that these tools are going to discourage people from learning how to make presentations and to practice speaking, because you're never going to speak in a way that sounds like these bots. There's hesitations. You have little filler words. You have your own quirks. You have a personality. And that's one of the things that's missing, I think, when you have these generated voiceovers, generated avatars. It's very bland. It's very bland. It's fine for corporate things, but I'm thinking if you have a small business, the personality of the business owner is part of the charm. I'd rather see something with some human flaws than a really bland, polished presentation. So we'll see where this goes, but I think we're going to see a lot more of this being generated. Of course, it's easy and it does look polished. So it doesn't look bad. It's missing flavor. So switching over to search. Google is rolling out AI mode to everyone in the US. Already, AI overviews are available in many countries. People are using them. Google says people love AI overviews. AI mode is a little different, though. It uses this fanning out technique where you start with your query, you enter in the search, and AI mode actually generates a bunch of related queries and searches, and it does all those simultaneously, gets all that information, brings it back, and puts it into a summary. So it's a lot more in-depth than an AI overview, possibly more accurate as well. And they're adding all these features to AI mode, local business information, shopping, Project Mariner is their agentic capabilities tool. And you say that it's basically, it does things for you. So you're saying it can actually do things like purchase tickets. You can say, oh, get me tickets to the baseball game in the cheap bleachers, and it should be able to do that automatically, which is pretty cool. And soon you'll be able to connect Gmail, maybe other Google apps to this, so it will give you personalized responses. So it's like a one-stop shop for everything. And like I said, with AI overviews, they're saying people are searching more since they launched AI overviews because they like it so much. Maybe it will be true with AI mode as well. But the big question for me is, what about the websites, the blogs, the news sites, where all this information is coming from? What happens to those? Google did publish information for website owners about how to make sure your content will perform well in Google's AI experiences. A lot of it, it's not new. Suggestions, create unique and valuable content for people, have a good experience when people actually open your website, have quality images and videos. Don't block Google's crawlers if you want your content to be used by Google and shown to people. But it doesn't really address the question of whether people will actually click those links in the AI overviews in the generated responses. And I'm thinking, the better those responses are, the less likely people are going to look at the original source. Now, I usually look at the original source for a lot of things because I know that often it gets it wrong. And there's a problem with going out and getting a whole bunch of information from multiple sites and then kind of averaging that. It misses a lot of context, misses nuance, and it's not perfect, but it certainly looks good. And I'm not sure most people will ever click any of the links, because why should they? Google does say that people who click the links in AI overviews are higher quality traffic. They spend more time on the site after clicking, and they specifically say you should not be focusing on clicks. Part of that is figuring out what you want. Why do you want people to visit your site in the first place? If it's to buy things, you should be looking at that metric, how many things people buy. But this is all very carefully worded, and it's like, if the comparison is 10 highly engaged visitors versus 20 low-quality visitors, I'll go with the 10 visitors. But is that the actual trade-off they're talking about? Or is it more like you get 10 high-quality visitors versus 100 okay quality, or 1,000 okay quality? If it's killing your traffic completely, and some sites have said that that is what is happening, the quality of the visitors doesn't make that much difference if there aren't enough of them. So again, this is all playing out. I'm not sure what Google's going to do if they stop sending traffic to websites. What is the purpose of that? There is this focus on information about local businesses, about shopping, about buying things. I think because those are still things that involve visiting the actual website. But what about information? What about people who blog about their travel? And the AI mode just scoops all that up, spits it out. People don't need to see the original. And you lose the personality, you lose the context. This is still playing out. We will see what happens. And to make it worse, AI mode links have had this no refer appended to them, which means that website owners won't see a referral of where that traffic is coming from. That's apparently a bug that's going to be fixed. And there isn't any data in Search Console about this, but Google Search Relations, John Mueller says this is going to be coming. So hopefully with some actual numbers and data, website owners, bloggers will have a better idea of how this is affecting them. Yeah. We'll see what happens in the future. I'm thinking more subscription sites, more things behind the paywall, and you'll want to follow specific people if you don't want just generic information. Yeah. So we'll see. That was the last of the AI updates. There's just a few more updates. You'll notice I'm going longer today. The usual live stream I have after this one on eBoard channel, it is 1 hour later than usual. It's actually going to be really interesting about appointment schedules. I recommend you join us, but that's an hour later. That gives me more time to chatter now. So I'm done with AI updates. I wanted to mention a couple of AdSense updates. There are new controls for anchor ads and side rail ads. These are automated auto ad formats for excuse me, for anchor ads. You can choose whether the ads will appear on the top or the bottom of your website or either. And the side rail ads, you can choose right or left or either. So it just gives you more control as a website owner where these ads appear. The other update is for Ad Intents. This is a different automatic format. It converts existing text on your web page into links. It places anchors at the bottom of the page. It can add what they call a chip at the end of a paragraph. This is automated. It finds spots in your web page to do this. People click, and there's this overlay that pops up with ads that are related to the text. So the change is that you can now choose to show display ads rather than search ads, or display ads as a backup for search ads. And why would you want to do this? So display ads are the ads that will usually show on people's websites. Search ads usually show in Google search. And there's a couple of big differences. The first big difference is that the revenue share is different. So Ad Intents with search ads, there's a 51% revenue share. And AdSense for content, display ads, that's usually about a 68% revenue share. So it's a higher revenue share for the display ads, but advertisers may be spending more money buying the ads for search. So you have to balance that out, right? If you have a higher percentage of a ad that doesn't pay as well, it may actually be less. So if you have an AdSense account and you have Ad Intents enabled, check out these new settings. I don't use those because I don't want my content to be linkified. I want to be able to control exactly what the links are, and I don't want some of them to go to ads. But for some kinds of content, this is probably a good thing. Over on Bluesky, Bluesky is verifying notable and authentic accounts. This gives you a verified badge. And this is always kind of fraught a little bit, but you can apply for verification. You have to submit documentation that you're notable. Either you are notable in your field, and those requirements are going to vary, of course, or your Bluesky profile is notable in some way. They do note that if you violate the community guidelines, they will take away that verification badge. This is some of what made people kind of upset on Twitter, that it was like not just identity verification, it was also tied into whether you were posting the right kinds of things. But Bluesky has an alternative. You can link your own domain to your profile, essentially use that as verification as well. It's not as fancy as the check mark, but it's self-verification. Does the same thing in terms of verifying that it's really you, or at least the person who owns that domain is the same person who has the Bluesky profile. And Bluesky is also testing a feature that I think is pretty cool. The idea is you link your YouTube or Twitch or other live streaming platform to your Bluesky profile. And then when you go live on those platforms, they show a special notice on your profile on Bluesky. So this is really, I think, kind of cool. You have the same network options to have your live stream notice to people in your network, but you're not locked into the platform for live streaming. So for example, Substack, very popular, they've added live streaming, but you really have to be completely in the Substack ecosystem, and it locks people in. So I'll be really interested to see how this develops. Right now, they are just testing it. It is not widely available. And then the last update this week, Mozilla is killing Pocket. So Mozilla, it's the parent company of Firefox. They acquired Pocket in 2007. No, they didn't acquire it. I think actually Mozilla maybe created what is now Pocket around 2007. It's a information article discovery platform. You can save links, you can save articles, but they also have discovery tools. You can see things that are popular. And since it's been around since 2007, some people have saved a lot of articles. You can export those. Mozilla says they're going to focus on developing Firefox. Really kind of a bummer. I used to use Pocket all the time, actually. It was really useful. There's an extension, so you could just, as you were surfing, you could just save articles to Pocket. Maybe people aren't doing that as much anymore. And I switched to using mainly Feedly, which has a similar kind of extension. So those are this week's updates. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk about what was happening 10 years ago. It was Google I/O 2015, of course, and there were big, big announcements. So 10 years ago this week, Google announced Google Photos, entirely separate from Google+. This was super exciting. Google Photos is free to use, unlimited uploads, great organization in search. And Photos was one of the most popular features of Google+. This brought it to all the people who were not using Google+ as well. And people at Google noted that a limitation of using Photos in Google+ is that it's tied to your public profile. And some people were hesitant about that because you didn't want your whole camera roll to be public. And I know when I was using it back then and helping in the Google+ help communities, this was often something people were concerned with on a lot of levels, and people would delete things because they thought they were public and then they would be gone. It was awful. So anyway, this was a huge, huge update. They called it the Gmail for pictures. Bradley Horowitz, who is the head of Photos and Google+, he was asked about what was happening with Google+. You take out this popular feature, and he said, this is evidence that Google+ is evolving. It's a sign of life, not a sign of death. Evolving is a good thing. One of the things we're doing is graduating out aspects of Google+, like Hangouts, like Photos. And I think what you'll find is what we're left with is a very clear notion of what Google+ is and what Google+ is good for. Yes, this is foreshadowing about what was going to happen with Google+. Anyway, you know, Google Photos is one of Google's most popular services. After 5 months, they had 100 million users. After a year, 200 million users. 2 years, 500 million users. And they hit the 1 billion user mark after 4 years in 2019. So it grew rapidly. And I think I would bet that all of you watching this probably use Google Photos in some form. I know I do. Of course, there were some big changes over the years. The biggest change was that in 2021, they started counting photo uploads against your total storage in your Google account. So no more free lunch, which, of course, probably sold a lot more Google One extra storage subscriptions. And of course, now you can also add AI for lots of storage. And if you look at the most recent updates to Google Photos, of course, they are AI-based. There are AI-powered editing tools, and there's Ask Photos, which is sort of a chatbot. You can ask about your photos and help it find your photos with sort of natural language queries. I'm not sure what direction Google Photos can take beyond this, because at its heart, the reason why people love it is that it's a really easy way to back up and organize your own personal photos. Don't really need more than that. Also, 10 years ago this week at Google I/O, Google announced several updates for virtual reality, VR, helping bring VR experiences to the masses, basically. They launched Google Expeditions. This was aimed at students to let students explore the whole world around them in virtual reality, even the moon. So you could go to the floor of the ocean, up to the moon, and explore these 360-degree panoramas. Instead of using expensive headsets like Facebook had the Quest, Google was promoting Google Cardboard. These were literally made from cardboard plus a few other elements. You would put your phone inside and use the Cardboard app, and that let you see everything around you. I still have some cardboard here. I should have pulled it out, except the app doesn't work anymore. So, in addition, Google also previewed what they called the Jump Camera Rig. This was made from 16 cameras in a circle, and it could and the Jump camera could record video from all these, and then there were algorithms that stitched them together. YouTube made these jump rigs available at their in-person YouTube spaces, so creators could try them out ahead of everybody, and this tied in with this tied in with YouTube's launch of 360-degree video, so this is a way that creators could make 360-degree videos. So what happened to these? Like all good things, they did not last. Google shut down Jump in 2019. They said there's new cameras, new formats, new editing tools for VR, and people just weren't using these Jump rigs anymore. You can imagine this really complex rig being replaced by just one camera that can record video in 360 degrees. Technology changes, and Google stopped making the cardboard viewers in 2021. They also shut down Expeditions in 2021. So that was the end of that project. You can still see some virtual field trip things in the Google Arts and Culture website, but it's not this immersive experience. So where is this all going? Excuse me. So it's been a few years, and now they're talking less about VR and AR, but rather XR, extended reality. This is virtual things blending with the real world around you. Google has been developing Android XR. This is an operating system for headsets and for glasses. And for no surprise at all, this week at Google I/O, they talked about Gemini integration with Android XR. And some of the things they demoed were really cool. So you have your glasses and it can identify what you're looking at. Or you're talking with someone in another language and you see the translation in real time. This is amazing. And Google says they're working together with Samsung for the hardware and with some fashion glasses manufacturers so that the glasses will be stylish when they launch later this year sometime. So this sounds like the future to me. I would love to have a pair of these XR glasses and see information about the world around me in an inobtrusive way. So that's what's happening. Whew, it was a lot this week. Thank you so much for joining me. The video, once it's processed, it will have chapters, so you can jump to the parts you're interested in. And next week, it should be a lot less. I hope you have a wonderful Sunday and a wonderful holiday weekend. I will see you all next week. Again, thanks for joining.